Hi, good morning, Bhanubhai. Hello, am I audible? Hi, am I audible?
And associated with Core HIR group from very beginning, and I'm really thankful to Core HIR group for bringing such a learning and thoughtful series, and they are bringing a very handpicked experts from the industry. So the core objective of Core HRIR group is basic. It's a to be a credible global HR network to understand and appreciate the current and future aspect of HR with respect to the core HR and IR related, and to learn and share the knowledge. And this group has more than 12,000 members who are associated with various network platform through LinkedIn, WhatsApp, and it has a very big thought leadership, which is helping various HR people. And we have a very global network. We are connected with various countries, and we have some of the new chapter also in a specific region. And this group is bringing the various HR and facilitating the various HR aspirant who are wanted to get the certification from HRCIUS, and I also done my SPHRI through with the help of Core HRIR group only. So this group is believing in empowering HR fraternity through sharing the knowledge and empowering each other. Next slide, please. So these are the one of the founding core member of the Core HRIR group, Veer Bharat, who is very founder of this group and a seasoned person. And then Bhanu Pratap, he's doing all the front end, back end, and the digital platform and managing the website and other wherever digitalization and other uh, his support is required. Kirti, Kashish, Jyoti, Anu, and Sona, and Kamal Pathania, they are prominent member of this group. Next slide, please. So we have various HR professional from all the Fortune 500 startup, and these are the some of the glimpse of the organizations where people are helping, mentoring, and they are connecting through this learning this group learning group from the various organization. And this is the small snippets of the journey of this group. This group has been founded and formed in 2017, and with a vision to to a credible global HR network to spread out and understand and appreciate the future and current aspect of HR, how we can mitigate the challenges of HR. And then this group started the Chai Buddy series. It is a informal discussions on the non-working days with the various industries HR professionals to understand their problem and to share learn their experiences. And then this group started HR conclaves and so many discussions on the HR trends, be it AI, HR analytic, and the change, HR technology series, statutory compliances, and the hybrid work pattern, so and so forth. Then this group has started the Learning Weekend series in 2018, and then during the COVID time, this group has imparted various weekend and webinar series, and gradually this group is spreaded out across the India in various cities like Bangalore chapter started in 2018, then Pune chapter, and the signing HR award is a new thing wherein this core HRIR group is recognize the young HR professional talent and appreciating them through their outstanding contribution and recognize their effort, their contribution to their respective organizations. And Core HRIR group has created its job board to help the HR professionals sharing their openings and closing the right fit person. And Core HRIR group has tie up with the HRCIUS. That this is a certification, a global certification organizations which is more, existing more than 40 years, and it has a partnership with Core HIR group, which is facilitating some discount and some time to time schemes to the core those who are registering through the Core HIR group. And in May 2020, the Core HIR group launched its APEC chapter. Kamaljit Pathania is one of the prominent member who is continuously expanding this group, this group's ethos in terms of the learning and bringing new skills, new areas, new learning areas of this group. Next slide, please. So far the group has awarded various learning weekend, Chai Buddy series, cooperation series, various masterclass, and this is the fifth masterclass of this series. And as I mentioned, they are facilitated a couple of HR signing award, and various candid conversation session has happened. Now these are the some of the glimpses of the Chai Buddy and various series where Core HR group has one of the key facilitator. This is the social media presence. This group has a YouTube channel. It is on LinkedIn available, and uh, Facebook, Insta, and other social media platform like Twitter. So these are the link and URL. You can refer the various updates and upcoming series through the, and you can connect on LinkedIn also. Now I would over to today's keynote speaker Misha Bajaj, and so that she can take her part on this. Over to you.
Thank you, Karo. Uh, I am very, very happy to be here today to be doing this masterclass and to be learning from everyone. Before I start, I think it's important that I establish and introduce myself to you. My name is Misha Bajaj. I am a certified ProSci change management professional. I am also a leadership coach, Marshall Goldsmith stakeholder certified coach. And I also run my own organization for employer branding, for internal communications, and for change management. And my organization's name is Katalyst Marcom. The idea of today's masterclass is not to be somebody who knows everything about change and change management, but to really talk about what I know, what my learnings have been, and to learn from all of you. A quick breakdown of how we are going to run this session. I have put most of the questions that we got from the audience into this slide here, and I've put them into broad themes. Simply because, when we go through the presentation, a lot of the questions might get answered automatically, but still there might be a few questions that need a little bit more attention, and I will talk about them in detail during the session. And of course, we will keep breaks in the middle for you to ask questions or clarify anything that I'm talking about, or to even share your own experiences. I'm not making this a working session wherein I ask you to do some work on your projects, because that takes a longer duration and we have limited time. So before we begin, let's just look at some of the questions that we got from the audience. Some of the questions were, what are the best practices in change management? When and how change management should be done in any organization? How to create difference in the employee approach through training? Change management and hybrid work culture. How do you convince your team to unlearn and accept the changes? How do you resist? How to change resistance? How to overcome change resistance? How to overcome resistance to change? Interestingly, they're different languages, but the same question. Post-pandemic challenge for organization and talent management and role of HR. Can change happen without the support of management? Now, when I look at this slide, the biggest theme that comes and talks to me is resistance. About how do you deal with resistance at all levels, whether it is employees, whether it is managers, whether it is leadership. So we are going to give some special attention to this topic as we go forward. But before we even begin, I think it's important for us to understand what is the space in which we are operating. So we all know this, we all are working professionals. We know that the situation right now, the environment that companies are operating in right now is absolutely volatile. It's uncertain, it's complex, and there are a lot of ambiguous factors operating in our environment. And to survive in this environment, to be ahead of competition and to be able to create value for our customers, we have to adapt and we have to respond to this VUCA environment. Now, the question is, how does change support businesses in staying successful? We can look at change and say that, well, this is not working, and hence we need to get in a tech element into the way we work. And that will make us competitive. That will make us successful. But the point is, it's almost like wishing that you get a gadget in the house and then it'll work on its own. So this change that you have brought into the environment, into your company, has to be supported with some management. You need to read the manuals for the gadget. You need to learn to operate it. And you need to help others in the family to operate it, to be able to make maximum use of it and hence fulfill the objectives of that particular purchase. So the question is, this is where we begin. Why do organizations change? Yes, the operating environment is such and we have to change, but then what could be the different reasons why organizations change? Here are some 6 big buckets of why organizations change. Change could be strategic change, which could be changes to the organization's policies, structures, or processes. It could be a people-centric change. It could be related to management change. It could be related to offboarding of employees. It could be related to onboarding of employees. It could be a structural change, which could mean hierarchy and team structure. It could be a technological change wherein you are changing your systems or your tools, you're bringing in a new software, a new way of doing things. It could be an unplanned change and you're forced to use this. You're forced to use your resources to deal with this change. For example, Corona and COVID. It was totally unexpected. Nobody knew this was happening and we just had to adapt and respond to that change. Or it could also be a remedial change where there is an identified problem and we know that we need to do something to change this in order to solve this problem. So while these were the reasons for change, what is change really? And I think I would really pose this question to everybody in the audience. What, according to you, is change? And you can unmute
The
or
chat
chat.
window is open if you all wish to kind of comment on this, please. The more we interact, the lovely the session will be for all.
I agree. Okay, I don't see any questions. So
Change could be a transition from the status quo.
absolutely, and that's a brilliant perspective. Anything beyond the usual, right? Moving from one state to another, excellent, yes. Doing things differently than in the past. Yes, and all of what you all are saying is absolutely right. So change really is a movement. Let me just reduce my window, sorry. It's a movement out of the current situation by way of a transition to move into a future state. Can you all see the screen? I have a slight issue here with tech.
We can see.
Yes, absolutely clear.
All right, good. If this is a transition that we're talking about, if this is a movement that we're talking about from what we are used to in the current circumstances to something that we don't know and something that we are only hoping that it would take us to, everybody's experience is going to be different about this. So change experience happens at two levels. Whenever we're talking about organizational change, and here we're talking about organizational change, it always happens at two levels. The first is individual experience. And everybody's experience is different. And every individual's experience put together comes together as the organizational change experience. Now, if I were to put up these pieces in a very jumbled fashion, I will never get the right picture in the jigsaw puzzle. So I need to ensure that all these pieces of the puzzle fall in their exact spot so that we can get the right picture for where we want to reach. And during this time, where you're putting together the pieces of the puzzle, the change journey can really be seen as one part being supportive and the other part being non-supportive of what you're planning to do. I would actually like to hear experiences from people of what is the usual change journey that people have seen so far in their roles. And again, you can please use the chat box or just unmute yourself and talk about it a little bit, one line or something. Any answers?
So, Misha, this is Kamaldeep Singh.
Yes.
So, I wanted to give you two scenarios. One
Mhm.
was the forced change management, and one was the change management which was initiated by the organization.
Okay.
Right. So, during the COVID times,
Mhm.
the first change which has happened was that moving from in-office working culture to work from home.
Right.
Right. The traditional departments which adopted to the work from home culture in a rapid way during COVID times was a brilliant example of change management. So
Hmm.
sometimes the forced change
Hmm.
helped to make the changes quickly in the organizations, right?
Hmm.
Like traditional department like payroll, finance never used to work from home.
Hmm.
Right, because they said that data security is prime issue. They need to work on desktop. And as soon as the COVID came, we switched on our gears and we started issuing the laptops, and people started working from home. And then we found out that this work is can be done from home also. So the major resistance which I feel is in our mind that whether change would be accepted or not. This is the forced change which I'm talking about. Second is the planned change which we talk about, which how much planning we may do. There are chances of failures in the change management. So in our organization, there are various case studies where we planned extensively and our change management did not work. But there were certain management driven changes which we did not plan, but it worked very beautifully. So I need to understand from this session that what are the key areas we should look from the change management perspective, and we should minimize our risk of failures from this.
Got it. So, Kandeep, that's excellent observations. Actually, two observations, like you said, two scenarios, and lots of things that I can hear from you when you're talking about it. For me, the first thing is that when sometimes people are forced to adapt to change, you yourself said there were a few people who adopted the change very quickly and beautifully.
Right.
So what happens is, in any situation, you will have people who are ready to go with the flow, who are ready to give in and change. And there are people who will, no matter what you do, will want to resist the change. So that's why the change journey looks like this. And if you look at the previous slide, everybody's experience of change is different. So the people who adopted the change early might be positive about the change for reasons that are not known to you. For example, somebody might say, okay, I get to work from home. For me, traveling to work was difficult, but now I can give in my 100%. And so he adopts that change. So the most important bit is everybody's experience of change, everybody's ability, and everybody's threshold level of absorbing change is different. So that change will always be there. I think what usually happens is that people are not really resistant to change itself. People are resistant to being changed. So if you force something on people, they will resist you. But change is not something that they're resistant to. And
Okay.
as long as they know what is really important for them or how it's going to help them, they can come around.
Okay.
Right? And the second bit about some changes that were planned by the management went beautifully. The minute you say the word planned means that there is a lot that went into it. Planning is key to change management, and we'll go through all of that. And by the end of this class, whatever questions are remaining, we can discuss that, Kamal. We would definitely circle back to you on this.
Sure, Misha. Thank
Okay?
you. Thank you.
So usually the common barriers for this red side of the screen, the common barriers, and I've just tried to put them into two big buckets for ease of understanding for us. The first one could be power struggles, personal agendas, or ego. And you know how people say is, we've always used this tool, we've always done things this way, or we've always used this method, or I don't have time to learn something new, or I have far more important things to look at that need my attention. or I will lose my power or my control or status if I were to adopt this change, or I do not want increased visibility or accountability. I don't want anybody to see how much work I'm doing. Or somebody might just say that it is out of line with the company's goals as I know them. So they are just not ready to accept because they have their own egos or power struggles or personal agendas. On the other hand, there could be fears operating and psychological insecurity that might be operating with the change. So somebody might say, I worry that change will make me obsolete, or I'm not good with technology, or I will lose my job, or the change would fail, or was a bad solution. So why go through it altogether? Or I'm comfortable with the status quo. I remember somebody said in the beginning, change is about movement from status quo to a new place. Or somebody might just say, I do not like what the change entails or requires of me. So मैं नहीं करना चाहता जो मेरे को इस change के लिए करना पड़ेगा. It's just too much effort for me. So I don't want this. So these are just common barriers. But all of these barriers put together, I mean, these are just some of the barriers, and there can be more personal barriers, okay? And if we look at the sizes of companies can operate as a single person, but usually companies will have 2 or more people. Now, if wherever you have 2 or more people, you have an increased set of barriers that you're faced with. And all of these barriers put together come together as a critical mass, and they lead to resistance. So what is resistance? You ask somebody to change and they have an emotional response to it. And resistance is an emotional response to change that may result in an individual's refusal to accept or engage in a change. The natural reaction to change is resistance. Every individual has a threshold for how much change they can absorb based on their personal history, current events in their lives, and current changes at work. So we talked about this. Everybody has a different threshold. Just like everybody has a different threshold of pain, everybody has a different threshold of how much they can absorb in terms of changing, how much they can adopt in the change. And some of the most impacted groups, and this is a research that was conducted by ProSci, and I'll keep bringing up ProSci in my research and my slides because I've certified from there. Some of the most impacted groups are mid-level managers at 42%. The second group that is impacted highly is the frontline employees. The third group is senior level managers. Executives and directors are probably at 9%, and others very little. Now, my question to all of you is, why do we see such a huge resistance from mid-level managers? And I really want to ask that question because it can open up a lot of things for us to look at.
For mid-level managers, can it be attributed to midlife crisis?
That's very very interesting.
And then most importantly, what I believe is why mid-level managers get most impacted towards it is because they are the ones who are given most of the responsibility ability of executing the change within the organization through teams, through them themselves. And hence the resistance is the highest because most of the activity part of it, the task parts of it comes onto them.
Absolutely right, Christine. So, both the answers, 2 different perspectives, but, the first answer on midlife crisis, very interesting take. But if you look at midlife crisis, what you're really talking about is increased responsibilities on the personal front, which actually leads to fatigue for people who are operating at that level. And that means that they're happy with the status quo and they really don't want to rock the boat. And Christine, what you said, again, absolutely right also. And Giraj, you also said the same thing. The responsibility of implementing the change and making it happen lies mostly, and is seen to lie mostly on mid-level managers. Now, imagine a mid-level manager who's managing a team. He's trying to do his day job. He's trying to reach his objectives. He's trying to get the team to reach their objectives. And on top of that, he's told that this also is a part of your objectives now. He knows that he needs to spend additional time on this. And he knows that he's being held accountable for this. So the added stress of performance and the time taken to do this is increased for mid-level managers. And hence, you will find mid-level managers to be, some of the most impacted groups. The frontline employees, again, are people who have to make that change, adopt that change, use that change. And again, they're being seen as whether they're using that change or not. And hence, they become resistant as well. Also, it changes their day job, right? There are many factors, and we'll go through those, many factors that affect why people resist change. So the primary reasons managers resisted change was organizational culture. There are some organizations which are risk averse. Sometimes in organizations, there are so many changes happening and they've not been implemented well. And hence people have had a negative experience with the change. So at that manager level, they don't want to go through another negative, event or project that will pull them away from their day jobs. Then again, at that level, groupism also comes into play. Groupism versus organizational dedication. And issues such as mistrust between departments and reporting levels. At the mid-manager level, there is also a little bit of a higher ambition as compared to the lower levels. And there is also a competition with other departments, with other peers, and nobody wants to falter on their targets, on their initially agreed targets. And hence, this becomes a reason for resistance. The second reason could be lack of awareness and knowledge about the change. So when people don't know the full picture, they only assume things about something. And when you assume things, you really are projecting your own thoughts about something. And that becomes gossip, really. That really is not the real picture. So that is a lack of awareness, a lack of buy-in. When people are not consulted before a change is put into practice, it results in resistance. It's I think it's normal human behavior. Misalignment of project goals and personal incentives, issues on the project management side. So in any project in the current times, you will see one side of the change is the technology or the project management side of it. And the other side of the change is the change management side of it, which is really the people side of that change. So when there are issues on the project management side, in terms of lack of metrics or pace of the change or misaligned incentives, then managers will resist the change. And in some cases, some managers feel less confident in their ability to manage their people or convince their own teams to adopt and use the change. So these are some of the reasons why managers resist change. Now, if all of that was resistance, how do you overcome that? What do you do? The best thing to do is to communicate. Communication can never be enough. You should really, every time you feel that, people are putting out feelers about the new project or the new change, which are not right, you should just follow the GOC model. And somebody might ask, what is the GOC model? The GOC model is get off your chair. Just get off your chair, talk to those people. And you can never communicate enough. Communication is the key to all of this. Develop a plan to address resistance. Now, at senior levels or mid-manager levels, you know where the resistance, what are the pockets where the resistance can come from. And you can put together a plan with your project team, with your change management team to address the resistance in advance. So you can proactively think of where it can come from and what you can do, what is possible within your organization. Understand both the change and the resistance fully. So while change plans are important, resistance plans are equally important. at ProSci, in the ProSci way of doing things, when we create plans, we create the change management plan, we create the resistance plan, we create the communications plan. All three of these plans are important. You need to engage and support leadership. Whenever people see that the leadership is supportive of change and the leadership is in full communication with them, people tend to engage more. You need to encourage individual stakeholder engagement. So like I said, change is different for different people. As long as the mid-managers understand that they have a role not only to implement the change, but also become mentors and coaches to their teams and encourage and handhold each of the individuals in their teams towards that change, it can become a very easy process for everyone to follow. Patience is another bit that we need to have as change managers. The other strategy is to convert strongest resistors and make them leaders. So you could actually hold one-to-one sessions with the strongest resistors and really understand from them and make it a two-way process and really understand from them why is it that they're resisting change. And once you know why they're resisting change, you can address it. As long as you know, as long as you communicate, you have a chance to address. If you don't know, if you do not engage, if you do not communicate, you cannot really convert any of the resistance into adoption. And another good way of dealing with resistance is focus on early adopters. So Kamal, like you said, there were a few people who just adopted the change. You can focus on those early adopters, because what happens is, for people who have seen situations like a work from home before in some previous roles or previous positions, they know how it works. It's easier for them to use it when it again comes to that. So it's as simple as when Google came in, we did not know how to use it as a search engine or what to use it for. But eventually, now everything is Google. Now we're even talking to Google. I mean, we're just doing voice commands. Alexa came in, we don't know what we can talk about it. But Amazon has been consistent in messaging and communication that you can ask Alexa anything. And, we can now use it. So people who have already used it find it easy to adopt the change. So focus on those early adopters, and they'll be the early adopters. Focus on early adopters, make them into advocates or champions for your change. And do not really focus on the hardcore resistors right from the beginning. Yes, you understand them. You know where they're coming from. Where they're coming from. You engage with them, but you really focus on the early adopters to make them champions for the change that you're proposing. Well, that was what we should do. What we should not do is to ignore resistance. I mean, no matter how much we wish it away, we don't want it to be there, we hope that it was never there, we cannot ignore it. It will be there. We have to look at it in the eye. We have to address it. We have to engage with it. We have to understand it and then deal with it. Broadcasting one-way communications. Now, sometimes I've seen that in companies, seniors will just send mass emails to the organization saying that this change is coming and let's just get on with it. So really, how do you think somebody who's reading that email will feel? I mean, if it's a small change, it's okay. But if it's a big change that's going to affect the person in a big way, do you think that person will really engage with you? Do you think the person will even want to adopt that change? That email will probably just go into the spam bin or something else. Newsletters, memos, and speeches to large groups were also ineffective ways to manage resistance. Like I said earlier, when you know that resistance is coming from certain pockets, identify those resistors and talk to them one-on-one. Try and understand where they're coming from. See, it could be, in some cases, for example, the union. The union is causing resistance. So what can you do? You can have a one-on-one, you can have a clinic with the union leader. Ask him what is this concern. Ask him why is he resistant. Ask him what has been his previous experience of change or the organization. It could be very, very helpful in giving you the answers to, what is his perspective and why he is resisting. You can also ask him what will make him adopt this change. And from there, you can start your communication. When you do something like that, you open up communication. You make them feel that their views are important and you increase buy-in from a large group of resistors. Now, imagine if this union leader got transformed with the communication that the organization leader did with them. And he goes back to the union and then he becomes the change champion. It will be a beautiful way to manage that change. So always important to engage one-on-one with the biggest resistors. You should never use threats or fear or coercion to get people to accept change. It just puts additional pressure on people and it totally spoils the ethos and culture of an organization. Imagine a person who was forced to make a change, leaves the job and goes to another organization and badmouths your organization. Imagine the kind of damage it does to the bottom line of the company. It's just creating a bad air, a bad marketing, bad press really for the company or your brand. Well, these were, reactive steps. What can you do in advance so that you can prevent resistance? What can you do proactively? Communication, like I said, two key elements of communication here. First is what's in it for me, and second is honesty in communication. If you look at the first bit, or what's in it for me, somebody would say, how do I know what's in it for the other for this person? The answer to that is, when you plan your change, you will have answers to all of these questions. You will know who are your biggest stakeholders. You will know how this change affects them. When you know how the change affects them, when you know what is the impact of the change, it is easy for you to predict resistance. It is easy for you to tell them how the change is going to help them reach their goals. Okay? So what's in it for me? Absolutely critical in doing communications. So target your communication. Honesty in communication. I'm not saying totally open up about the challenges and the risks and everything about the change that a project management team is going through. But the least your team deserves to know is why you're doing this change. And what is your vision to making this change happen? What is the future state that you want the organization to be in? So, for example, it could be a small organization wanting to, so I'll give you the example of my organization. I have a small team. I have a team of 10 people and it's a very boutique sort of an experience. It's a small firm. But at the same time, I want my team to feel that they're working for an organization, a professional organization. And a very small change that I did for them was to give them ID cards, and every morning when everybody is wearing their ID cards, they feel very proud that they're working for a professional organization and not just, a mom and pop store. So it's a small change. But how did I make it happen? I told them the advantages of doing this. I told them why I want to do this. I told them that I want to see Katalyst as a big company. And that's my vision for it. I want to grow it this way. And I want all of you to be part of this journey. And today, each one is holding the other accountable for wearing this. So it's a very small example, maybe not relevant to a very big enterprise, but again, change begins from individuals. So honesty in communication coming from the top management will always do wonders in communication. It shows that you're ready to be vulnerable. It shows that you're human and that you're willing to understand the humans on the other side of the change. The second proactive step that you can take is engagement. When you engage employees in development of solutions and strategies, You get their buy-in. You get them to say that, you own this change. You make them a part of your team right from the beginning. So they become champions for your change. They become sponsors for your change. And they're the ones, because they're involved in that project, they're the ones who will help others to adopt that change. So engagement is absolutely critical. And the third bit, and I can't stress this enough, is the application of methodology. Do not go into a big change or even a small change without a plan, without a methodology that you're following. If you follow change management practices, in this case, for example, in our case, we follow ADKAR and the PROSI model. If you do not follow these practices, your change can backfire. Because there is a reason why these practices, these methodologies are put into place, and you can do a lot with them. It's very prescriptive, very easy to understand, and it will put everything in easy tables, easy dashboards for you, and you just have to follow it step by step. That's all. It just makes things and life much more easier.
Misha, can you throw some light on ADKAR and other model?
I will. So what is change management? There was also a question on OCM, from the audience. So change management is the approach that is used to prepare, support, and equip individuals, teams, and organizations to deal with change. While organizational change management looks at what needs to change in an organization and how the transition will happen for the enterprise in order to be competitive and relevant in the industry. So the organizational change management, or OCM, really looks at what needs to change, and they put together the project team for the change to happen. While the change management team really looks at the human side of change, the HR side of change. However, I would still say that change management is not only for HR. It is for everybody. It is for operations. It is for, line managers. It is for senior management, anybody who's responsible for change. So I just wanted to bring up a couple of models of change management. We all know Lewin's change management model. We all have heard about Kotter's 8-step model. But what we're going to focus on is the ADKAR change management model. ADKAR was developed by Jeff Hyatt, and it was introduced at PROSI in 2013. PROSI is a management consultancy. ADKAR really is a short form for awareness of the need to change, desire to support and take part in the change, the knowledge of how to change, the ability to implement the change, and the reinforcement to sustain the change. So the ADKAR model is a prescriptive and goal-oriented model. Each milestone must be achieved to define success. Now, we talked about resistance and the impact on individuals. I want to quickly take you through this slide. In ADKAR, in the PROSI methodology, we look at 10 aspects that impact people when change happens. The first aspect is tools, systems, processes, job roles, critical behaviors, mindset, attitudes, beliefs, reporting structures, performance appraisals, compensation, and location. If any or more of these elements is impacted by the change, you will face resistance from the individuals concerned. The more factors are affected, the more the resistance to change. The lesser the factors affected, the lesser resistance to change. Now, to understand the ADKAR model, and I'm not going to go into a lot of detail today, but I just wanted to bring up the 5 tenets of ADKAR. The tenets are really principles that we believe to be true, and these address the why and the what and the how of change management. If I were to put these into simple language, this is the slide that I would look at. So the first tenet is we change for a reason. So what would you ask as change managers? Why are we changing? The second tenet is organizational change requires individual change. Who has to do their job differently and how? That's a question you need to ask and answer. Tenet 3 is organizational outcomes are the collective result of individual change. How much of our outcomes depend on adoption and usage? Is the change only about deploying a particular tool, or is the change about people using that tool? The tenet 4 is change management is an enabling framework for managing the people side of change. So the simple question is, what will we do to support adoption and usage? The tenet 5 is, we apply change management to realize the benefits and desired outcomes of change. So the question we need to answer is, how will driving adoption and usage improve results for the outcomes that we are hoping to get? So this is the process of ADKAR. It's divided into 3 parts. The phase 1 is focused on preparing. The phase 2 is focused on managing the change. And phase 3 is focused on transferring the ownership and sustaining outcomes. When we say prepare, we define success, we define the impact, and we define the approach of the change. When we say manage, we put all of this together, we integrate it into a plan and start activity. We track our performance in terms of the activity that we're doing, and we course correct. If we need to make any adjustments, we look at our actions and we course correct. Finally, the change manager hands over the project to the company, to the project management team or the HR, who can continuously reinforce and review the performances, activate sustainment, and the project is done. So what is change management really doing and why is it important? Change management actually fills the gap between strategy and implementation. So you will have a strategy that outlines requirements. You will have a strategy that says, this is the output we are looking at. How do we achieve that? These are the specifications. How fast can we get this? This is the installation plan. But then all of these needs implementation to see results, outcomes, sustainment, and realization. For all of this, how do you need to bring this future state? Is through this transition stage, the people side of change. You have to get people involved, connect the change to the people, and get the outcomes you want to realize. So change management is outcomes desired. We go through this through the ADKAR model. And what are the activities required as a process by a system through specific levers that drive outcomes desired. And ADKAR defines success at scale. So change through the ADKAR model can happen with one person, it can happen with 5 people or 20 people or even 1,000 people. And when that happens, it can become an organizational change. This is just to show you what can be the different levels, where different people can be in terms of their ADKAR journeys at different points of time. So Kavita has high awareness, high ability, limited desire to do the change, for example. Grace, on the other hand, has a high desire and a high knowledge, but very little ability. So the way we communicate with Grace is going to be different from the way we communicate with Kavita. When we communicate with Grace, we will really be telling her how she can use her knowledge to accept the change. And when we talk to Kavita, we can actually talk to her about what is her resistance towards this change. What are her specific concerns, personal concerns, that in spite of her ability to accept the change, she's not doing it. So this is how ADKAR makes it easy for us to know people's ADKAR journeys and help them change. So if I were to look at the ProSci change triangle, you have 3 elements of change. The first one is project management, which is the technical side of change. The second side is the governance and direction that you get from the leadership or sponsorship. And the people side of change is the individual and organizational side of the change, which helps them engage, adopt, and use. When all of these come together, you get a successful change. This is called the PCT model, Project Change Triangle. At ProSci, it's believed that the ability to successfully deliver an organizational benefits and project objectives is directly impacted by how effectively we manage the people side of change. And what is the people side of change? What are the human factors of this return on investment? The speed of adoption, how quickly people adopt the change, how many employees or the ultimate utilization, how many employees of the total population are adopting and using the new solution, and how proficient are they in using the solution. When all of these three things are in place, your change management is successful. Now, the title of this masterclass was How is Change Management a Driver for Business Success? And to answer that question, I want to give you this slide. There is a reason for change for every organization, but the success of change depends on the technical side doing their own bit in design, development, and delivery. The people side or the change management side doing their own bit on engaging, adopting, and usage. And when both of these come together, they move people from their current state, ease their transition into a future state. And that becomes a successful change management project. And that brings us to questions. So over to you.
So, Misha, how we can reinforce, this EDGAR model in HR technology and the transformation part in HR?
A little bit more detail, again, would be useful.
If you could throw some light, 2-3 minutes.
So how you can use the ADKAR model for HR transformations?
Yeah.
Okay. So HR transformations you would have seen are typically about installing new softwares to make processes simpler for people. There could be simple processes which are like as easy as, getting a new software. That could be a change. New software on the system, that could be a change. Or it could be more difficult, which requires users to do a little bit more, engage a little bit more with the tool or the technology that is being used. I want to take us back to this slide. Now, when we are talking about HR technology, there are so many things that impact the individual who's going to use that technology. You are changing the person's tools. You're changing the systems. You are probably including the new system and the new tools in your processes going forward. So that has an impact on this person. Maybe the job role doesn't change. He still remains and continues to do what he's doing. However, how he does his job and his critical behavior has to change to adopt that change. His mindset needs to change. His belief needs to change that this tool, this new system is important. Maybe the reporting structures don't change. Maybe performance appraisals don't change in the beginning. Compensation doesn't change. Maybe his location doesn't change. But if you have changed the basics about tools and systems and processes for this person, then it's a massive change for the person doing the job. He's got to do his job differently. The point, therefore, is if somebody has to do their job differently, you have to look at what degree does this person have to adapt to be able to do his job differently. If it is just on a scale of 1 to 10, if it is just like a 1 or a 2 or a 3, it's easy for this person to adopt this new tool. But if it comes anywhere between 5 and 10, it's going to be a time-consuming process for this person to accept and start using this new tool on this, in his job role. And hence, you need to engage with this employee. You need to communicate. You need to tell him exactly what the system is and what it is not. You need to comfort them by telling them that this is not changing. What is changing is this part. And the reason why this is changing is so that we can get efficiencies here. We need efficiencies here because we have been lagging here, here, and here. So you need to tell the individual that it's not about the individual that the change is happening. It's about the organizational goals. It's about the organizational aspiration. Because every time you tell somebody to change something about them, they feel something is wrong with them. Something that you have criticized about them. So you've pointed out a flaw. You need to move away from that and take them into a more objective space and tell them, this is what is right for the organization. This is what we want to do for the organization for it to reach here. And we need your support. because it depends on this process, and you are the person who's following this process. So we would like to introduce this tool to you so that your jobs can become easier. Does that answer your question a little bit?
Yeah. Thank you so much. So how we can measure in other can ask their question also. So you can answer my question if someone has other questions after that. So how we can measure why in Adkar model?
How we can measure?
Why? Because you
The
just
why.
deliberate. Yeah, the why.
So, Praveen, when we undertake a project for change management and we do it through the ADKAR process, there is a whole set of assessments that we do before we even put the plan together. So the did I make right? So this is the process that we follow. So before we actually start implementing the change, because what usually happens in organizations is most people think that change is about employing the change, deploying the change, and then communicating that this is happening. If you do it that way, then it's never going to work the way you want it to be. Because communication is not the only answer to your change management questions. You need to plan, you need to prepare. So the why is answered here. There are a lot of assessments that the project management team and the stakeholder group goes through before we actually embark on the entire roadmap for change in a particular organization. If you skip this step, this cannot be robust. So you have to put your heads together on what is it that we're really trying to achieve and why. Define the success, define the impact, define the approach. Unless you have all of these in place, you can never make it right.
Okay, thanks, Misha. So Amit has a question. How much time do we really give people to change? Especially those who are champion of resisting the same. And despite of the fact that before the change, they were supposed to star performer.
Great. So Amit, in any organization, there will always be people who will, no matter what you do, they will resist the change. The only strategy that you can adopt is do a one-on-one with them. If there are star performers, you know who they are. You can just ask the senior management. And guess what? Research shows that when senior managers or leaders actually interact with people, things work. In a lot of cases, if the leader appeals to the audience, it really works. It's almost like when Modi ji said, you know, all of you have to get onto your balconies and, you know, do that whole thali wala thing. Kiya hi na bahut sare logon ne, and yet there were people who were not part of the change, but still they were all out on their balconies. But if the leader can really talk to people, maybe one-on-one, to these star performers, and understand where they're coming from, why is it that they're resisting change? Because everybody has a why. If you can get to that why, your problem will be solved. You can then make the person feel that, you know, his opinion matters. He's a star performer, so he expects that he be treated like a star performer. So the minute you start treating him like that, you give him importance, you ask him to give his views on the change, and maybe, you know, use some of the feedback to implement in the change, you've got him on your side.
Misha, could you please go to the slide where you were talking about the people who are most impacted by change?
1 second. This one?
Yes, this one.
Hmm.
So, you know, assuming that a lot of people here understand Hindi, and also assuming that mostly the executive and the directors are those who propose and trigger the change. I recently came across a statement from one of my colleagues that वो तो कागज के जहाज बनाते हैं and कागज के जहाज को उड़ाना is the job of mid-level managers and the senior level managers. Could that be a reason why the mid-level managers and senior level managers are impacted the most by change?
So, Pushpak, the straight answer to your question is somebody saying that statement obviously feels that he is not being consulted. Somebody who is saying that statement feels that ये एग्जीक्यूटिव डायरेक्टर्स टॉप पे बैठे हुए हैं अपने ऑफिसेज में, उन्हें क्या पता मेरी डेली स्ट्रगल क्या है, उन्हें क्या मालूम कि मेरे को क्या करना पड़ता है इस सबको करने के लिए, ये ऑब्जेक्टिव्स मीट करने के लिए. So, you know, the easy way to deal with this is, even before you're actually implementing the change, you know, there are these representatives and you have these meetings, right? Transparency and open communication is most important. जब आपका सिस्टम इम्प्लीमेंट हो भी जाता है, even then there is scope for improvement. Debugs चलते रहते हैं, कुछ ना कुछ चलता रहता है. At that point, if you can really consult with your mid-level managers and say, ये सिस्टम था, ये हमने चेंज किया, आपने इसको इतने दिन यूज किया, अभी आपके कंसर्न्स क्या हैं, आपको लगता है कि हम ये अचीव कर पाएंगे, नहीं कर पाएंगे. The minute you open that dialogue, it gives them the opportunity to present their point of view. Obviously, it has to come from a person who they trust. Trust and empathy is most important in all of this process, because nobody opens up to people who they don't trust. Because अगर ये mid-level manager बोल रहा है कि कागज के जहाज बनाते हैं, clearly he doesn't trust these people. But कोई ना कोई तो होगा executive or director level में जिसको वो trust करता होगा. And that person can, you know, speak to them, get their points on board, and maybe execute them.
Okay. Yes. Yes, I got your point. Thank you.
Most welcome.
So we
Hi,
have six-
Misha.
Yeah.
Can I ask something?
Yes, please go ahead. Who's this?
Pushpinder this side.
Pushpendra, sorry. Yeah.
So the point we were just discussing this right now, you solved the query regarding this somebody making such comment that kagaz ki jahaz pe rehte hain. So this is a very common phenomenon that we come across. So always we find a couple of people having such kind of problems. But what I see here is, as organization, it becomes very difficult at times that we take this approach, okay, whom he trusts, and we onboard that person, and that person convinces the other person. So as an organization, does we look weak in doing that we have to approach each and everyone and make everybody pleased? So sometimes challenges come in that way, because people then don't agree, okay, why we need to convince, why we need to do this. So that kind of challenges also come across.
I get that. So Pushpinder, I just want to take a step back, okay? Because ADKAR can be applied to individuals as well as to enterprises, right? Now, I want to take a step back and apply something to yourself as an individual, for example. So tomorrow, imagine we are working together, and or even if we're not working together, even if I just know you, happen to know you, Pushpinder, and I say, and I don't know how you are, I'm just doing a very random this thing, so please don't take offense. I come to you and say, Pushpinder, you need to do something about about your hair. It's just falling all over the place, it's just all over in the office. For example, I say something like this. Now you might say, why the hell should I do anything, yaar? मतलब मेरी problem है, तेरे को क्या करना है? मतलब जब मेरे को किसी और ने नहीं बोला, then why you coming and telling me this, then pointing out my flaws to the whole world? So you might be aware that you're having a hair fall issue. Awareness है कि उसके बारे में कुछ करना है, but you don't have a desire because it affects your ego.
Yeah.
Right? It makes you feel, how the hell can somebody tell me what to do, yaar? It's my problem ना, मैं कर लूंगी ना अपने आप जब मेरे को करना होगा, किसी और को problem नहीं है ना. Is it affecting my work? Is it affecting the output that I'm giving? People can get defensive, right? So ये तो होगा ही होगा. But when we kind of transpose this resistance to like a bigger issue about how people do their jobs, it's important not to go to individuals like, जरूरी नहीं है कि, I mean, you can't just go to 6,500 people, for example, if in a big organization. एक के पास जाके नहीं ना आप कर सकते, but आपको फिर भी delegate करना पड़ेगा. You will have to get people on board who will champion this change. You will need to get people on board who will advocate this change. Starts from the top. You've got to get your Sometimes even in the executive level, you don't have full buy-in. You have to get all of them as a stakeholder coalition. Then you have to get champions together as important stakeholders. The most important bit you need to do is ensure that your champions do not become resistors to change. So you be absolutely transparent and honest with your champions so that they feel that this is the right way to go and they can promote it. You know, it's as simple as मैंने कोई movie देखी, मुझे बहुत अच्छी लगी और मैं अपने दोस्तों को recommend कर रही हूँ, you should go and watch this movie. Unless I liked it, I will not promote it. So you've got to be absolutely clear, honest, and equip the champions, support them, and train them, inform them about what needs to be done, what is the change, how will it change things, and what is the future state that you want to go into.
Yeah, I completely agree and understand that perspective. Yeah.
Perfect. And
Okay.
actually, I would like to hear from you all. You know, there might be different instances or experiences that you all would have that can add to my, you know, my knowledge and my experience as well.
So
Yes.
just in one line, I will add something and then maybe we can hear from others. What generally happens whenever we trigger a change, and as you said, you know, we have to have our champions definitely as a positive influencer, definitely that needs to be done. But what happens sometimes, somewhere at some point of time, their ego gets touched. This happens. Even they are, you know, fully bought in. They know this needs to be done. But something they have to change in their approach, and that becomes a discomfort for them. And what happens in this pull and push, the two people who were talking about change, they become enemies. So
I get it.
So these are all but human psychology and organization.
Exactly true.
You
said it right, Pushpinder. It's all about human psychology. It is also about what we might be going through in our personal lives. So personal agendas can also come in the way. You know what हम लोग बोलते हैं कि अपना home life home में छोड़ कर आओ और फिर work life अलग रखो. ऐसा होता नहीं है. I mean, you know, if you are affected by some things at home, it will stay with you. And when you come to work, you know, you will feel fatigued with whatever is happening. And then you might just, so somebody who's had a fight at home in the morning, he comes and, you know, something happens about the project, the change project that you're doing. And you immediately snap that, what the hell, why should I do this? It might not be related to the change person or the project itself, but about your mental state, you know, and still that friction has been caused. And then two people don't see eye to eye, you know, and that gap keeps increasing.
Yeah.
So again, communication, you know, because psychology, like you said, you know, there is this the entire human side to change. We need to understand that we've got external factors operating around us as well. It's not just what is happening here. So regular check-ins, regular communication of formal, informal, online, offline, it always helps.
Yes, yes. And as you said, GFOC. So I think that helps the most.
Absolutely. Get off the chair.
Okay, thank you.
So friends, if you have any other questions, we can take up one more question, and after, if you don't have any question, we can conclude. So Misha, if someone want to, you know, connect with you to avail your professional services, how one can reach to you? Can you share your credentials?
I will share my credentials on the group, and also Veer can be the person who can, you know, really route the connections. I think that will be best for everyone.
So other than change management, in which areas you are serving the organization and the professionals, if you can.
So Katalyst Marcom is a boutique agency. We're based out of New Delhi. We're based out of Rajendra Place. We have a team of 10 people. We look at employer branding. We look at internal communications, and we look at change management. So these are the services that we offer, and happy to support anybody for any advice, even if you don't want to take, you know, a full project or a service. Anybody from the fraternity, if anybody needs advice, I'm happy to do that. And if you really need, longer or professional services, you can definitely reach out to me through Veer. I'm also on LinkedIn, and I can share my details that can be posted in later.
Okay, sounds good. So you will since people will approach you through Veer, then there will be special consideration of the services also. Yeah, thank you so much for your time.
No worries. You're most welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much everyone for your making out the time on busy Saturday. Generally some people are working, and maximum people are working for their home and other responsibilities area. It was a very insightful session, and very much practical also, because generally people are reading the theories and doing the so many experiment on the change management. The biggest takeaway is the assessment to identify where we can personalize the change, and where we can inculcate the change in what's in me, and how we can take the one individual and the enterprise. There are many takeaways from this session, and we will keep troubling you for your other upcoming webinars and your time for this. Thank you so much, Misha, and thank you so much everyone, and thank you, Bhanu, for making this arrangement. Thank you very much.
Yes, is it possible to share this PPT?
I can share this PPT.
Yeah,
Thank
sure.
you, Misha.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for time. Thank
Yeah.
you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you very much for this wonderful session. Really got great
Thank you.
insight.
Thanks, sir. Thank you so much. I'm glad I could add value to everyone. And this session also gave me a lot of insight. So please keep these insights coming. If you all are on the group, please keep the discussion going. It would be great to have different points of view on this.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Have a good weekend, everyone.